To keep the two-time MVP in town. It seems like it worked. Hello, Stephen A. Smith from First Take. And we were thinking it's not often that a true NBA superstar stays in a small market. You can think back to maybe Tim Duncan 20 years ago. I mean, but that's exactly what Giannis did today, agreeing to this supermax with Milwaukee. What's your reaction?
Well, obviously, $44 million is average a year is a bit difficult to turn down, number one. But number two, and more importantly, I think we have to take into consideration the kind of background that he's had. Had a very impoverished background in Greece. He's been through a tremendous amount of adversity in his life, has overcome a lot of obstacles, and to find a home, albeit in a small marketplace like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it just says a lot about his character. It says a lot about the things what things mean to him, what certain things mean to him in terms of family, chemistry, camaraderie, friendship, and all of those different things. That had a lot to do with it. And then give the Milwaukee Bucks as an organization credit. They may have blown the Bogdanovich deal by opening their mouths a bit prematurely, but Drew Holiday is a baller. Chris Middleton is not a scrub. He's a 20-point-per-game scorer and an elite third option. He just wasn't an elite second option. You take all of those things into consideration and you look at the Eastern Conference, although I look at Philadelphia and Brooklyn and Miami, the bottom line is with Giannis being who he is and the parts that they put around him, this is a championship contender. And if you're Giannis and you are a championship contender and you combine that with getting an average of over $44 million per year in salary, what the hell is there to say no to?
I get it, absolutely. But I think the key word that you used is family. We know Giannis is a different cat in that way, and that's how he's always felt about that Milwaukee Bucks organization. Yeah. And to your point about, okay, are they contenders? That's the big question next. You need results. So specifically on the court, Stephen A., what do you need to see from Giannis to get them to the NBA Finals?
Well, he has to develop a perimeter game. We understand he's unstoppable in the open court. He certainly can finish at the basket. We understand his size, agility, athleticism is right up there with anybody in the world. But he's really got to work on his perimeter shot because come postseason time, defenses get back. And when they get back, they force you into a half-court setting. And when you're under those conditions, you've got to be able to hit perimeter shots in order to be successful. And that's really what this comes down to. 2 years ago, they had a 2-0 lead. They were 2 games away from a trip to the NBA Finals before Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors won 4 straight. Last year, Miami shocked them and the world by beating them, primarily due to the play of the Tyler Heroes, Bam Adebayos, Duncan Robinsons, Jimmy Butlers. Miami can shoot the basketball, plus they can defend, and plus not enough credit is being given to the fact that Eric Spoelstra really threw a zone defense at them, which really discombobulated everything that Milwaukee wanted to do. So if you're Giannis, again, improve your perimeter shot, but the pieces around him, get them to maximize their potential. They wanted you to stay so bad, you stayed. Yeah. Now tell them to make sure that you don't regret it.
By the way, the last time the Bucks made it to the NBA Finals, 1974. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Big O, Oscar Robertson. That's when those guys were on the team a long time ago. We'll see if this changes things. Stephen A., thank you. More from you ahead.
No problem.
Still ahead, a next-level look at the NFL Game of the Year on Monday Night Football. Stand by for the top 10 must-see moments from the Ravens-Browns epic showdown. You don't want to miss it.
Still to come on SportsCenter. Before James Harden takes the floor in Houston's preseason action tonight, don't miss
23 p.m. Eastern time today. Two-time NBA MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo sent the tweet that rocked the NBA, announcing he is signing that supermax deal to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks. You see how he ends it there. The show goes on. Let's get it. And that is the perfect way to begin this edition of SportsCenter. Kevin and Stace with you till the top of the hour. As the biggest remaining question in the NBA was answered today by Giannis himself.
Yes, 6 days before the deadline and 1 week before the season starts, Giannis has decided to stay home and sign the biggest contract in NBA history. It's our breaking news as the reigning two-time MVP has agreed to a 5-year supermax contract worth $228 million. Not bad for the 15th overall pick in the 2013 draft. Coming off a season where he joined Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon as the only players to win MVP. And
23 p.m. Eastern time today. Two-time NBA MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo sent the tweet that rocked the NBA, announcing he is signing that supermax deal to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks. You see how he ends it there. The show goes on. Let's get it. And that is the perfect way to begin this edition of SportsCenter. Kevin and Stace with you till the top of the hour. As the biggest remaining question in the NBA was answered today by Giannis himself.
Yes, 6 days before the deadline and 1 week before the season starts, Giannis has decided to stay home and sign the biggest contract in NBA history. It's our breaking news as the reigning two-time MVP has agreed to a 5-year supermax contract worth $228 million. Not bad for the 15th overall pick in the 2013 draft. Coming off a season where he joined Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon as the only players to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. But the top-seeded Bucks were bounced out by the Heat in the Eastern Conference semifinals, raising questions on whether the roster was good enough to convince him to stay in Milwaukee. And he can opt out after the 4th year. Scheduled to make $27.5 million this upcoming season. The Bucks, by the way, they acquired Drew Holiday this offseason to upgrade their backcourt. But a reported trade that would have brought in Bogdan Bogdanovic to Milwaukee, that fell apart. So there was some doubt with Giannis. Well, he has now decided to stay in Milwaukee, at least for the next 4 years. Let's bring in Adrian Wojnarowski with much more on this story. Woj, so Giannis can now just focus on basketball. How did this come together just 6 days before the deadline?
Well, there had been a lot of conversation between Giannis Antetokounmpo, his agent Alex Saratsas, and the organization. They've been talking since, really the Bucks lost in the bubble and came home, and they've talked about how they'll build a team here around him. He's had a chance here in the preseason to play with Drew Holiday, get a sense of the team he has short term and what it could look like long term. But ultimately, at his core, Giannis is an extremely loyal person, and he's got great belief in Mark Lazary, the owner, John Horst, their general manager in Milwaukee, and a great connection with his teammates there. And as it was described to me today, as he looked at that landscape out there, he knew what the potential free agent destinations were. They didn't appeal more to him than what he had in Milwaukee. And the idea of going to join up on a super team, it just didn't appeal as much as the opportunity to try to win a title in Milwaukee.
They believed in him from the start. That was a big, big deal. They added a lot of depth to that bench, but there's a lot of layers here to this announcement. What's the significance of having one of the faces of the league in his prime at age 26 deciding to stay in the market like Milwaukee?
It is a victory for smaller markets in the league. They have lost, any number of star players to bigger markets, more glamorous destinations in the league. And, that Supermax contract had not worked how owners thought it would, which would be to keep players like Giannis in Milwaukee. And listen, with state tax laws, he might have been able to go to Texas or Florida, and it would have been a wash, even with contracts that wouldn't have been worth as much. So the money wasn't as big of a difference as it might have been if he went to those states who have different tax laws. But ultimately, for Milwaukee, it's an immense day for that organization. They had a lot on the line, obviously, with this. You can't replace a Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you get the sense other small market teams in the NBA, they were rooting for this. They liked the idea that it was a day that they could score one against the big market teams that they've been continuously losing players to in free agency.
You've been on top of the story from the start, Woj, with the very latest on Giannis staying with the Bucks. Let's go to Sage.
Thanks, Kev.
Kevin, here's a good example of how Giannis brings it every night for the Bucks. He's already played in both of Milwaukee's preseason games, including last night against the Mavs. In 27 minutes, listen to these numbers: 24 points, 14 boards, 4 assists, and 3 blocks, all just hours before announcing one of the biggest decisions of his life. And that's in a preseason game. He just turned 26 last week, and when he spoke to the media, he was asked about the subtle messages from his teammates, all of whom gave him pens for his birthday gifts. Listen.
Chris came in and gave me a pen, and I was like, "Well, what is this?" I was like thinking about it, and then I realized he wanted me to sign the contract. And it was just like, okay, I laughed the first time, I laughed the second time, the third time, and then I got